please.
Excuse me.
Mr. David Pilates? I think it's Pilates. David Pilates of Missing 411.
Mm-hmm.
He was on Coast to Coast AM, I believe, last Wednesday for a good 2-hour interview. And, he talked about some new and intriguing cases and just give everyone a little update here. So he did reach out to some remote viewers to see if they would look into some of this stuff. But the remote viewers wanted to charge him an arm and a leg. And they also wanted to charge the families because he's just an investigative journalist at this point, David Pilates. So these remote viewers who would get coordinates and imagine, I guess it's hard to explain what remote viewing actually is. You're just visualizing the events and possibly the surrounding circumstances around a person or a place or a thing. These remote viewers wanted to charge an arm and a leg. So he hasn't gone down that route yet. He is open to using psychics to, uncover some of these missing 411 mysteries. And he's been delving a lot more into urban disappearances. But the one thing I don't like about Coast to Coast AM in general is that every hour they have to recap everything. So for new listeners, they have to get caught up to speed. So they couldn't. It didn't seem like they could go too deep into anything because David was constantly having to reiterate everything that 411 is, missing 411 is. It was kind of tedious to listen to at times, but he did bring up one thing that if you have a cell phone on you, you're less likely to be taken. If you're armed, you're less likely to be taken. But there is a piece of audio of a person that was dropped off at a gas station just to pick up some food and some snacks, and then he was going to walk home. And on his walk home, he dialed his wife, got a voicemail, and he disappeared right then and there on the phone. And his body was found 6 days later in a lake with a lot of GHB in his system.
Is that that's the drug G?
It's a date rape drug. It's naturally occurring in your body, but they found a lot of it in his system, and they're finding a lot of it in other people's system too, if they test for it in the autopsy. I'll talk about that a little bit. Here's the actual voicemail that this disappeared person left.
It's a voicemail unlike anything you've ever heard before. There are 2 minutes worth of noises, bizarre ones. But very little actual talking. Authorities confirmed the disturbing middle-of-the-night call came from Henry McCabe's cell phone. It was Labor Day, September 7th at 2:28 in the morning. McCabe's worried wife heard the message.
His and my cell phone connected.
Minnesota Community Policing Services is a nonprofit agency and acts as a go-between with police and the Liberian community. The leader is trying to help the family make some sense of this recording.
The growls turned to high-pitched moans.
Like he's moaning in pain?
Like moaning in pain.
The tortured grunts suddenly stop. There is silence. Then someone, either Henry or another person, says, "Stop it."
I try to picture where he was, what it might have been like, what circumstances would have made him sound like that.
The voicemail is in stark contrast to other articulate recordings of McCabe speaking at an event. He's a state auditor.
What is the justification? What is the right thing to do?
The message is one piece of evidence Mounds View police are reviewing. The police chief tells me even the FBI is analyzing the recording and voices for clues. The chief says the investigation took deputies here on Tuesday to Rice Creek Park, which borders New Brighton, Mounds View, and Fridley, all areas where McCabe was reported seen or a cell phone ping placed him. Ramsey County Water Patrol searched but came up empty.
So, it's kind of hard to make out some of the audio, but it is kind of inhuman.
That's like X-Files shit right there.
And so the autopsies that have been done on these missing people and then their bodies found, most autopsies don't specifically test for GHB because it is naturally occurring and it can be harder to test for. It's a very specific test. But I think in this case and some other cases, they do find extremely high levels of GHB in people's system. And this is a date rape drug that kind of gives you paralysis. I think your mind is active. You're aware of what's going on around you, but you're unable to move. So someone dumped a lot of GHB in some of these people, and then they threw them in the lake. They threw them in the river to drown while they're perfectly conscious and awake. So it makes it, even though they're athletic and they take good care of themselves, they're unable to swim, hence why they drown. Fucking bizarre shit. Even more bizarre, the FBI getting involved in this when it's just a local man missing. The FBI, I don't think, gets involved right away in cases like this. So they're in here analyzing the audio.
Wasn't that guy's story? He was just going to pick up stuff from the store?
Yeah.
So when were he could have possibly been drugs? Usually that's to be people put in a drink.
Something like that. Or whatever entity is doing this is using GHB to make the person more malleable. So they can just drag them, do whatever they want with you. So maybe it is not necessarily being drugged in the traditional sense, like it's being dropped in your drink, but maybe it's administered very quickly through an injection some way.
Yeah, like a blow dart. Or, yeah, because to Jeff's point, it's I thought it had to be ingested, but yeah, maybe you can shoot it into them somehow. Or
and we have to take into account that some people that go missing in these 411 cases disappear literally within feet of other people, out of the blue.
Like the kids that just, when a guy turns around, the kid's no longer on the sandbank.
They're just gone. Like they fell through some kind of hole. And then they reemerge in these areas that have been searched over and over again. And a lot of these cases, according to David, that the autopsy doesn't test for GHB. So this is a relatively new thing that he's working on. And a lot of these coroners aren't, and medical examiners don't really want to get involved with this kind of stuff.
No. They're probably not paying attention to it at all. If there's any connection to anything at all, they're just like, oh, this is weird. They don't know.
The person drowned, case closed. That's it. He probably got drunk, fell in the water, he got hypothermia, or he drowned. And that's one of the things they say. So, like a lot of to explain away a lot of these deaths, like, oh, the woods died of hypothermia, or they drowned, kind of like these natural kind of things. But you would freeze to death if you had a lot of GHB in your system and you couldn't fucking move to keep yourself warm. You would drown if you had a lot of GHB in your system and you couldn't swim. It sounds like this GHB is being used as a cover-up method to kill people and do whatever they want to do with them. I don't know.
I pictured some random crazy dude has some wild animal or some deformed thing, like sicks him. Like, who said stop? Who's the one who said stop at the end, and why? Who's he telling to stop?
Yeah.
Wasn't alone.
This kind of, when I heard the GHB, like it being used as a drug to pacify people, it kind of reminded me of how the aliens in the movie Signs had that little thing on their wrist that they could.
Yeah, shot the mist into you.
Yeah, shot the mist into somebody to pacify them and or kill them, but that was naturally occurring in their system. Like this is some kind of like venom. It's a venom that some weird creature uses to inflict upon their victims, but there's no teeth marks really on these people. They drowned. So what's the benefit? Are they killing? Are they being killed for pleasure or for hunt or for sport or for some kind of experimentation?
You know what? I'm thinking now about how we had our serial killer thing for a while. You know, the aliens thing at the beginning of the 20th century, the serial killer thing through like 60s, 70s, 80s, and then we ended up with what I guess school shootings. I think became the thing. Like, do you think this would become a bigger trend, like mysterious deaths?
They're not. Well, it could be if the media hyped it, and they're not. They're not connecting the dots like David is.
Yeah.
The FBI is getting involved. They're keeping it on the down low. If you remember, we've talked about how some of the investigators, some FBI investigators, get the press. They've been following this shit for years. If any of them know the real answer, they're not telling. The park services are pretty quiet about this shit. They don't want this to get out. And this is happening all over the world too. This is not just America. It's all over the world. People are contacting David from Missing 411 to report that their loved ones have gone missing. And he says like maybe 70% of the time, yeah, it's explainable. This shit is explainable. There's nothing out of the ordinary about it. But then he has to delve into some of these more curious cases, and these very abnormal cases are enough to pique the interest of, say, this is crazy paranormal. This shouldn't happen. Why isn't this getting enough attention? And it's not. And then we have these voicemails like this, which even fuels the fire of, is this some kind of weird cryptid, some bizarre experiment turned loose on the world? Is it Bigfoot? Is it aliens?
You want it to be Bigfoot so bad.
I want it to be an alien Bigfoot, at this point.
Perfect. But I looked up the cost for remote viewing. I found this McMonagle intuitive intelligence applications. $200 an hour.
Okay.
$1,500 a day plus expenses.
It's not bad.
And looks like, typically it's about 1 to 1.5 hours to answer 3 questions or set up time, remote viewing, report generation, or whatever that is.
I think we could do a Kickstarter on that, a GoFundMe. I think that Missing 411 is popular enough that we could generate that kind of money and pick out a case and ask some questions.
Yeah, or let Politis do it.
Yeah, I reached out to Politis. I said, hey, do you have a database? Do you have Excel spreadsheets that we could take a look at? Here's my resume. I think if we ran some of these numbers, we could probably glean some new information or additional patterns by using like predictive analytics, some programming techniques that I picked up along the way. And he never got back to me. I don't know if he's legally allowed to share the data he has gotten from park services, but it'd be great if he did. Put it up online.
All the stuff that he got was Freedom of Information Act, so I think that should be fine to share as far as I know.
I just want to data mine it and find keywords, use the geolocation, use the date, use this kind of stuff. Use programming to find additional patterns that maybe aren't obvious to the eye.
Data entry.
What's that?
It's going to be a lot of data entry because you got a lot of paper reports.
Well, I'm not going to data entry it. I mean, that's what I was hoping. I was hoping he'd have a database or at least Excel spreadsheets. No luck. He hasn't gotten back to me yet. He hasn't gotten back to Night Ripper about doing some programming.
Yeah, well, Night Ripper. Yeah. Maybe the Snowman should reach out.
Yeah, the Snowman. Hey,
you want to see my carrot?
Hey, I'm good with the woods. I'm good with tracking shit.
Yeah, that guy in Minneapolis just got taken out by Snowman.
Yeah.
You want to see my carrot?
Yeah, want to see my carrot? Oh, boy. Let's do some more strange shit. That wasn't strange enough for you.
That was good.
Yep, good and weird. I like that. I like the Missing 411 stuff, I think. Probably the most out of all the supernatural stuff we do.
I like it, too, because there's no theory behind it, really. It's so open to interpretation. Any theory is just as valid as another person's.
Yeah.
It's so bizarre, especially when you have the FBI involved. You have special forces. You have local police. You have an ex-detective. It makes for a great movie, and they're making a movie out of this. I don't know how they're going to make it. I don't know if it's going to be more of a documentary, or I don't know if it's going to be a fictionalized accounts of these missing people. I don't know, but it's in the works, and he says it's coming out. Here's a headline here. Sticking on the strange stuff. Dead pilot found naked in UFO.
Okay, there we go.
Sounds pretty run of the mill to me.